All right, I think we should get started. It's already a minute past 7, and we only have 60 minutes, and that is not enough to go through everything we want to, but we'll make the best of our time. So let me start by welcoming you all. I'm so happy you're here. We have been waiting for this masterclass for a while. It is the invisible to irresistible framework is one of the first things we usually teach new clients that are in either of our programs, the accelerator program, or when we start working with firms. This framework is the basis of BD, and it is very helpful to organize your network, but also to create a network. So it is helpful either if you're a junior or a senior. So let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Anja Kreutzahler. If you don't know me, I'm the CEO of peakleap. I am a lawyer, and I worked in some of the world's highest grossing law firms in the world, where I actually taught the system before. And the lovely person to my, I don't know if it's for you the same, to my left is Daniel Correa, and I let him introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. Great to have some familiar people here that I've spoken to before. As Anja said, I'm Daniel Correa. I'm Director of Learning and Development here at peakleap, and I have my background is education. I have a doctorate in education in leadership, and that's my part, one of the parts here at peakleap. Teach and I get people through some of the leadership aspects. So glad to be here with you.
All right, and as you know the drill in any of our master classes or any webinar you probably join, tell us where you're from in the chat so we can see that the chat is working. And it is always really interesting to us where you're joining from. And while you do that, let me quickly walk you through the agenda today. So the first part will be our opportunity engine. So the from invisible to irresistible system. I will walk you through each of the steps in as much depth as I can, because of the time frame. And then the second part will be a quick overview of our levers method. That is the method we use to support lawyers and consultants in creating their business and trusted relationships. And then at the end, we'll do a Q&A. We already got a couple of really good questions that we're going to answer at the end. Just to preface this webinar, so usually what we do at peakleap, we don't have classical lecture style workshops or webinars. Our workshops are designed to have you work alongside the workshop. We cannot do this again because of timing, but try and take, or I will give you 3 takeaways later after this webinar that you can implement right away. Because at peakleap, we're all about implementation and not just about theoretical knowledge. So let's get into this. Daniel, maybe you can kick us off.
Let's do this. So, well, the best way to start is from the beginning, right? From the foundation. uh, so I would like to ask you, Anja, and know what do you mean by when you talk about building the base? When it comes to your network and the business development system, what does that really mean?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, this is the first framework and system we teach anyone that works with peakleap if it comes to BD. Because the absolute BD basic is having a network that you can use to create opportunity, to create work, and then create a book of business that you can utilize in the future in your career, maybe if you change careers. And we've called it the opportunity engine. It's a 7-step system that will help you manage your network and be consistent with your networking and building the base. So let's get into this. The first step is anytime you get a new contact, it will start in this system. You might already have a network, right? You might already have lots of contacts. You might have them in a spreadsheet. You might have them on LinkedIn. You might have them in your firm's CRM. But what I'm proposing is you need your own opportunity engine because some of the contacts you have might not belong in your firm's CRM. Usually the potential clients and clients belong in your firm's CRM. I'm not saying you shouldn't use your firm's CRM, not at all. You absolutely should. But what you also need is an overview over your own network. And there are lots of contacts in this network that don't belong in the firm's CRM. So building the base for me means look at your network and look at who of your contacts should become part of this opportunity engine. What that looks like, we'll talk about later. But I often get the question, or we often get the question is, how do I get contacts, especially from junior lawyers that haven't been, or junior consultants that haven't been around for that long? So what I usually suggest is, you go to your firm's networking events. That's the first thing. You also go to client events. If you're more junior, you might not yet be invited to those, but you also join networks. So either your industry network events or a lawyer network, like the Women's Lawyer Network. There are lots of networks you can join and attend their events. And then something else I'm always suggesting is try to find a network that is outside of your industry or your area of law that you're working in, or your consultancy industry. Find something like an NGO or volunteer at events. You will be surprised what kind of opportunities come out of a network that has nothing to do with your industry or has nothing to do with your actual work. So that is usually how I suggest starting your network. If you don't have anyone currently in your network that should get into this engine that we will get through.
So my next point is, every process, every system, we need to find a way to make it stick, right, Anja? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the perception I have. And which brings me to step 2, how to make it a habit. Because we know if it's not a habit, we tend to forget, get busy, push it backwards and do it later. So, and a lot of people, when I talk to people, our clients think about the first impression they have is the networking has to be that big event, or has to be something very heavy lift that you have to do massively. And it's not always the point, or it's not always the case.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, how does one build a daily habit that can change the game for them?
Yeah, so consistency beats intensity any day. And there are lots of studies about this, about how clients actually decide on who to give work to. And that is top of mind awareness. You can find it in lots of research from Thomson Reuters or any other one, research service. When they ask clients, why did they choose a certain lawyer or consultant to work with? It's usually, oh, that person came to mind. That person, I've had a conversation with that person. I've worked with that person before and they're great at XYZ project. And how do you create top of mind awareness? Top of mind awareness comes from consistency. So reaching out to your network regularly, so you create your own opportunity because you are top of mind when the opportunity arises that potential client or client can give you work. And how do we do that? How are we consistent? We build a habit. So how we teach it is usually you look at your daily habits. You look at so we are using the habit loop from James Clear's Atomic Habit. So you look at your daily habits. What are you doing every day where we can add a 15 to 30-minute business development habit? And yes, it should be daily. We also have clients that do it once a week, but I don't recommend that. It's just so much time in one bulk. And if you don't do it, there is a whole 2 weeks or 1 week where you don't do any business development. So try to stick to this habit every day. And one of the most successful people I have worked with is a private equity partner at the world's largest grossing law firm in the world. And his rule was every day before he starts work, he reaches out to 3 clients every day, Monday to Sunday. Not saying you should do that Saturday to Sunday, but they're a bit hardcore. But that is such a powerful tool that he has used for the last 20 years. And it created this amazing, incredible network that develops millions in fees every year. And what I want you to do is look at your day and try to find a consistent time every day where you can do this habit. Let's say, fitness, in the fitness world, there is a example that every day when you brush your teeth, you're also doing 20 squats. What I'm saying is every day, for example, when you get your first coffee in the office, the first thing you do before you start answering client emails, or maybe you already have answered client emails, the first thing that you do when you sit down with your coffee is you reach out to 3 clients. That will help you be consistent. And using a BD habit is so powerful because if you do it the same time every day, it will create so much opportunity for you just because you're consistent with it. So create a habit 15 to 30 minutes each day.
Well, and to me, for example, I do that during my coffee in the morning.
Lots of people do.
Before I do anything, that's what works for me, and that's what I want to say is it is very important to find the rhythm, find what works best for you, as long as to increase the consistency, right? As you mentioned, we have the habit of waking up in the morning, brushing our teeth, for example. Now, most of us do. I think all of us do, and it becomes automatic. I think that's the point. How can we make it automatic otherwise it's not a habit? Yeah. So finding the best moment, the one that you not gonna even think about it, you're gonna do it without having to put that much effort or thoughts into it.
And we have lots of examples, right, of people using crazy times to do that habit. We have someone who never goes to his lunch break before he has reached out to 3 clients. Yeah, you just find a day, let's just find a time in your day.
So you have a very structured way of organizing the contacts. And I know for a fact, because I'm privileged, I get to work with you, so I get to learn and test it at the same time right away, right before anybody else, which is a benefit for me. But could you walk us through the list that people should always have or should be creating in order to really understand and manage their network? Because it can start from having 10 people, and we already have clients that have 6,000 people on their networking. For example, I'm just giving an example. There's more, but it can be, the gap can be very big.
Yeah.
How do we do to stay on top of it?
I mean, you often also forget who you have in your network. And when the time arises, you cannot reach out to them because you haven't reached out to them in like 2 years, and it is weird. So what I usually do with clients that start with us, we develop lists. We develop different lists where we organize their contacts that should be in this opportunity engine, that should be reached out to regularly. And that helps with creating a rhythm for each of these lists to reach out to them again. So let me make it easier for you and let me show you. So this is an example of lists that we've created. It is one that, those 6 lists, most people use those lists. Some people have more lists, some just name them differently. You are a successful, smart professional. I trust that you can name your own lists and decide which lists you need. So let's walk through these lists. The client list, the people you already are working with should be on this list. These are your most valuable contacts because, and I know Daniel hates the saying, but low-hanging fruits, put most of your effort into the clients you already have with great client service, and then we're going to chase the new great opportunity. So the client list is really important. Then we have the potential client list. So these are the contacts where you think that these people could be a potential client at some point. These are the people that are your dream clients. And we have a whole separate session on how to reach out to your dream clients. But put those contacts you have at your dream clients in this potential client list. Then we have the colleague list, because a lot of work that each of you gets is a referral from someone you might have used to work with at another firm. Maybe they moved on to another consulting firm and they regularly refer work to you because they don't have that practice area or that industry that you are working in now. So it is really valuable to have an overview and stay in consistent contact with people that you went to university with, that you worked with beforehand, your peers that you worked with at another firm. And this list is actually a list that I get the most questions about, besides the annual review list. Do I put this person on this list? I don't know. I haven't spoken to them since university. Well, if you think that's an interesting contact that could help you with opportunities, then add them to the list and start reaching out to that person again. Then the multiplier list. So multiplier list is anyone that can refer work to you but isn't directly connected to your work. Let's say you're an M&A lawyer, so M&A consultants are multipliers for you. It could be someone who does regulatory, works in the regulatory space and usually, regularly just refers work to lawyers or consultants. Lots of examples for multipliers. You know who the multipliers in your area of focus are. So this list is really important because referrals is one, and now my Mac does that. We want that. But yeah, the multiplier list is an important list because we need to reach out regularly to these people, because also for them, we need to stay top of mind, not just with clients, but also with the multipliers who are able to hype you up in a room, who might mention your name in a room where they decide about who gets that piece of work. And then we have the bonus list. So the bonus list is a list where you have all the contacts that support your work. For example, a thought leader in your industry, someone from the press that regularly reports on your industry or your area of law. I've also added here ticket brokers, venue contacts, press contacts, anyone, everyone you think is valuable to be reached out to regularly, that has nothing to do with your work maybe, but might be someone who can refer you work or mention your name to other people. That is the bonus list. Those people should get in the bonus list. And I promise you, you already know people that should be on the bonus list. Next one is the annual review list. So this is a breathing and living system. It will change. People that are on the clients list might not stay forever on the clients list. People who are potential clients, they might not be a potential client anymore because they made it clear they will not give you work or it's not the right time. So these contacts that are on any of those lists, but you think they are not a opportunity at the moment or within the next year, those go to the annual review list. And once a year, you look at this list and make sure that the people that are on the annual review list should not go back into your system, or maybe should go back into your system, that you reach out to regularly. So the annual review list is not your overall work network with the hundreds and hundreds of people you have in your network. The annual review list is a list where your contacts from the other lists go during the year if they're not currently or should not currently be in your opportunity engine. We get a lot of questions about the annual review list, with people asking if these people should be on the annual review list. And I cannot answer that question for you. We also have people that have a half-year review list because there's so much going on in their network that they need to look at this list every half year. But have an annual review list, even if it's just to make sure that once a year you look at your client list, your potential client list, colleague list, multiplier list, bonus list, and make sure that we have everyone on those lists that we should reach out to regularly. All right, that was a lot in 5 minutes, but like I said, if you think you need another list, or you think there is someone missing, then create that list.
I have a,
Yeah, sorry.
sorry. No, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you, Anja. How do I create all those lists? Should I create all those lists at first? Because, if I have, let's say, 10,000 people on my contact list, it might take a little bit too long to create those lists, and you want to start reaching out to them, right? So what is your tip on how to proceed with that?
Yeah, no, not at all. That would be so overwhelming. If I told you, go ahead and use this list and take all your contacts and put them onto one of those lists, that's not what I'm saying. The easiest way to start with this is tomorrow morning, or whenever you want to create your business development habit, you reach out to 3 contacts that you wanted to reach out for a while. And I'm sure there's someone that you think of while I'm saying this. It might be someone from a conference 6 months ago that you thought about reaching out to but haven't reached out to. It also might be someone, a old colleague that you haven't spoken to in a while. Start with that. Start with those 3 people and put them to your lists where you think they should go. And we talk about the rhythm in which you should reach out to them in the next step, but also the reminders that you should set yourself. But I can promise you the first list that usually is full is the client list. So the people you're working with at the moment. So that list gets full very quickly. And I can already anticipate the next question, that how many people should be on that list? So rule of thumb is that you should have 50 to 60 people on those lists, not more. And I'll tell you why. And I know we have people that have hundreds of people on these lists, but if you want to reach out to 3 people each day, and you only have 15 to 30 minutes, and you want to reach out with value, then you need to make sure that you don't have too many people on these lists. And if you have 200 people on your client list, your potential client list, chances are you're not reaching out to them regularly because you don't have the time. So make sure the people on these lists are high priority contacts. And then you have the chance to actually reach out to them regularly, 3 people a day. And you also have the energy to meet with them. We'll get into how you should reach out and all of that in the next step. But if I can give you one tip, start tomorrow with those lists, but start with 3 people you haven't reached out to in a while.
If you allow me to add one thing to it, don't delete the contacts. Move them around. Because a person
No.
because a person cannot or will not be able to do business with you right now. It doesn't mean that things are not going to change, right? And I know we get to that later, but that was one mistake that I made before. I deleted a contact just because I thought it wouldn't be an opportunity, and ends up I had to get a connector in between to get back to it, and you don't want to do that.
I mean, you will still want to keep all your contacts anywhere. It's an Excel spreadsheet, it's in your own CRM system, it's in your Google contacts, wherever. Don't delete those contacts. They might reach out to you, and they might start going into your opportunity engine. But just from an energy perspective and how much time you have, you cannot deal with more than 50 to 60 people on each of these lists if you want to reach out consistently.
That brings us to our next point. I believe, and that's coming from my side, one of the most challenging part of it, how to stay top of mind, right? So you create your lists, but now you need to stay visible. How do you do that?
Yeah. So the actual idea behind the opportunity engine is this: it's stay top of mind. And how do you stay top of mind? How are you consistent? Every time you talk to any contact on any of your lists, you set a reminder when you reach out to them again. And that, you might send an email to someone asking them for lunch, you meet for lunch, you send a really nice follow-up email, thank you for lunch, and I hope you're doing that. But then you need to set a reminder for yourself when to reach out to that person again. And depending on which list that contact is on, that rhythm might be different. So rule of thumb is the client list. You're talking to that client regularly anyways. So you just need to remind yourself to ask them out for drinks or a lunch. So you're not just talking shop and work. But for example, for the potential clients, we usually say you should reach out to those within 2 or 3 months. So what you do, you go to lunch, nothing concrete came out of that meeting, but you want to reach out to that person again. You get back to your computer, your mobile phone, you set yourself a reminder, and you can do that in Outlook, you can do that in your CRM system, whatever you're using. Set yourself a reminder to reach out to that person again in 2 months. And then automatically each day you will get reminders to reach out to certain people, and you can obviously snooze them to the next day if on that day you have 6 reminders. But you will see the more time you use the opportunity engine, you will only get 3 reminders each day, because if you stick to the rhythm, 3 people you reach out to, and then you set yourself a reminder to reach out to them again in 3 months, then those 3 people will pop up again in 3 months. So same goes for rule of thumb for the other lists. Multiplier lists should also be within 3, 4, 5 months. And then the bonus list, I usually say once a half year or once a year, depending on the person. I mean, again, you are a smart professional, you know your contacts best. So you set yourself a rhythm, but set a rhythm. That's the whole magic behind the system, that you create reminders. And, we're not reinventing the wheel, but set reminders to create consistency, and consistency will create opportunity, and opportunity will create your book of business. So stay top of mind, get those top of mind awareness with setting smart reminders.
And well, nowadays we have a lot of technology that can help us setting the reminders, right? And I know there's another topic that we address in another course when we use how to use AI to help you, help you with those tasks, for example.
Yeah. So in each of our workshops, and each and every one of them, we address how you can utilize AI to be more efficient. And especially for the opportunity engine, there is so much potential to use AI to help you with, from custom GPTs to using Microsoft Office, smart reminders, stuff like that. You can also use some of the bigger CRMs have a smaller version that is unpaid, that is for free, that you can use, that can also help you set smart reminders. But especially for the reaching out with value, you can use AI. But yes, I know I'm not addressing this because it will just be too much for this workshop. But AI is such a, and I hate to use this word, but it's such a game changer for networking and anything else, but especially for utilizing this engine, we use AI a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. It actually makes it a lot more achievable to do it that way. So by any means, make it easier for yourself, as long as you stay visible and stay connected. And then I've heard from you many times, and it's a great reminder to not just check in for the sake of check in without having any context or any value added to that check in. So always check in with a piece of value that you can provide your connections. So what does it really mean to lead with the value in the network when you do networking outreach?
So reaching out to clients and how to reach out to contacts is like a huge part of one of our workshops. Let me break it down into like the short time frame. I always say lead with value, and that just means make that contact, show that contact why it's why it's a great thing to spend time with you or to read your emails, because you're not just checking in. Yes, you're checking in personally, but you also always add value to any of your outreach. And how we teach that is one of the things is you create an asset list. So anything that has to do with your industry, anything that has to do with new regulations, things that changes in the law, you create a list with things that you can send to your potential clients. It might be a case study that you've done, and you're not sending it out in a newsletter to 100 clients. You make it personal. That is why you have the 15 to 30 minutes and only reach out to 3 people a day. So you can make it personal. You can actually personalize it to the company that that person is working on. And the asset list has lots of parts that you can use. And what we also teach is a framework, a conversation framework. Anytime you have any interaction with a client, you do personal, business, personal. So you always want to lead with something that you know about that person. Maybe they told you the last time you reached out to them that there was a piano recital of their daughter. So you start with that. So, hey, we haven't spoken in the last 2 months, but I remember that you said you went to a piano recital of your daughter. How was it? Actually, we've just helped a competitor of yours with a new regulation. This is what we've done for them. Let me know if you want to talk through it. And then end with something. Hope you're having a great day. I know that you usually go to Greece on your holiday. Have you already planned your holidays for this year? And again, you know your contacts best. This is just a framework that you can think about when you reach out to your clients. And the important thing is lots of people, lots of your colleagues will reach out to clients and say, hey, just checking in, how's work? How do you respond to that? First of all, it's a time sucker. And second of all, it's, yeah, well, it's going well. How are you? That's the answer you get. And that gets you nowhere. So try to reach out with value. And again, here we use a lot of the AI. Anytime you speak to someone, you should note a couple of things. Again, personal, business, personal. So write down what you've talked about on a personal level, and then write down what you talked about business. And one of those notes will be a good starting point for an email or a telephone call. And yes, we still call our clients and not just send emails. But what I'm trying to say is we are trying to establish trusted relationships. How do you create trusted relationships? You start connecting to people, and you connect to them personally as a human and not as a professional. That is how you create that first connection. And then you show value as a professional, because you also want to be of value as a professional to that professional. And if you take just a couple of notes, I'm not saying like write down the whole conversation. And it is so easy today with AI to just have AI summarize, use Otter AI as a transcribing tool, and then just use 3 points that you can take note of for the next time you're reaching out to the client. And then keep in mind, reach out with value. And that is how we create consistency. That's how we create trusted relationship. And it's how we create opportunities. Sorry, I could talk hours about this, but let's move on.
I mean, it's great to hear, we do use AI and we encourage people to use AI, but not in substitution of who we are, right? Because those connections, people want to connect with you, and they want to make sure you as a person, as a human being, is the one connecting with them, right? So we always say use to facilitate, use to assist you, but it's at the end of the day, it should be you behind the computer sending those messages, obviously, making that phone call. Now we can rely on AI to do everything for us. Otherwise, it wouldn't be genuine, right?
Yeah, true. Genuine outreach, genuine interest. If you're not genuinely interested in the other person, they might not be the best person to be in your opportunity engine. I always also talk about if you don't vibe with that person, if it's really hard to create a connection, don't spend your efforts on that person. There are so many more opportunities, and it is really hard to keep in constant contact with someone you're just not clicking with, and you only have a certain amount of energy to spend. And if I'm asking you to meet one client, or actually meet 3 clients a week, and I'm not asking everyone to do that, but if I'm asking you to do that, it is really hard to spend that energy and your lunchtime with someone you actually don't like. So don't do it.
And actually before we move on to the next, it brings me to another point is as you map your client, your network, your contacts, that's one, and we talked about this in our program, is that when you identify your ideal customer, right? One of the steps says you should be able to love working with them. So
Yeah.
as you said, if you
Yeah.
can stand that person to go to lunch, it might not be your ideal client audience or client. So you need to rethink that, right? So
Yeah,
make
the
sure.
value canvas and how to identify your ideal client is very powerful when it comes to this. And yes, agree.
So now it brings us to the next step. And this for me is one of my favorites. And I will spill the beans here, right? Because I think Anja, not I think, I know Anja to me is the best person when it comes to be a connector. Anja does it like no one else I have ever met. And I'm not just saying in front of her. I tell my clients, I tell my friends, it is true, right? And it's such a important part of keeping that contact list live. Nah? So Anja, if you could,
Yeah.
and I know it will be hard to be as good as you are, and I'm saying this,
No, no,
and
no.
but how do you make those introductions, even if
Yeah.
it's if you're not expecting a payoff? And I think that's one of the most important things, because you expect a payoff, that connection is not genuine. So you're making a connection for the sake of making a connection. And tell us how powerful that strategy is.
Yeah. So when I was younger, I realized that I'm a natural connector. I always think about if I'm talking to someone, who could I introduce that person to in my network that would be interesting to them? I don't know. I never thought about it. It's just something that happened naturally. And when I started working in law and started teaching people and helping them build their businesses and increase their businesses, that was one of the most powerful tools I could give people. If you know the framework we talked about before, personal, business, personal, if you add who can I introduce that person to in my network that can add value, even more value, that is such a powerful tool to become a trusted advisor. And we've used it at all the law firms I've worked at before when I used to help a lot of partners, but also senior associates to become better at networking. That is one of the first tools I give people. Always in your mind, if you have a conversation with someone, think about who will be interesting for them to meet within your network. And you can even prompt that thoughts in your head if you just ask them about how's business, right? An easy question, what are you working on at the moment? What is, what's happening on your side? And that usually prompts a response where they are struggling, where they could use help, or maybe a win. But then think about who in your network could be helpful to that person. It is also a question that you use to prompt cross-selling, but I explicitly am not using this for cross-selling. I'm explicitly using this to be a connector, because what it shows is that you have genuine interest in helping that person or supporting that person or being a cheerleader for that person. And it shows trust in that person if you make someone else from your network available to that person. And you will not believe how many times that got an opportunity. And obviously, a lot of luck and timing and momentum has to do with getting opportunities. But becoming a connector is something that you can do to amplify those opportunities. And next time you have a conversation with someone, just use the framework, personal business framework, and then who can I connect that person to?
There you go. Now you guys know. Yeah. Next one, Anja, and the final step, and not least important, change. How to grow through change. And a lot of people, change is a sensitive topic, and because change, and I'll talk about it in my workshops too, because change sometimes can be personal, right? And people take that way. So but it's inevitable, right? everything is changing, and it's changing fast. Our network is changing and evolving, so is our careers. How should people think about adapting and refreshing those networks over time?
Yeah, I think what's really important for me is that you do not see the system as set in stone. It is there to help you, and it is there to develop your network. And we've seen it work hundreds of times, just the consistency part alone. But obviously, you need to refresh your network. It makes no sense to have the same client list 2025 and 2026. It makes, well, all of it, right? One-on-one. Make sure that you regularly review your lists. Make sure you regularly think about the opportunities that come from the contacts that are on these lists, because more time than not, something might have changed. People might change jobs. They might, might just retire or something. The thing is, that is a working and breathing document. Your lists are a working and breathing document. Make sure to regularly update them and don't have them set in stone. I could go into way more depth, but we're already at 40 minutes. So
there you go.
Yeah, so these are the 7 steps of the opportunity engine.
So now tell us 3 things that you would want people to take away from the opportunity engine.
Yeah, so we are all about implementation over education. So do me a favor, and tomorrow morning, do the first thing you're doing tomorrow morning is reaching out to 3 people you haven't reached out in a while, and then you set yourself a reminder to reach out to them again in 3 months, 4 months, whatever you think is the right rhythm to reach out to them again. And ta-da, you started your opportunity engine. Consistency, consistency, consistency. So that's number 1. Start tomorrow morning. You can even start right after this webinar. Yeah, here we go. You can start right away, but please implement this. It is great that you've listened to us, but it is way more important that you implement it. So the second thing is be a connector. Even if you do nothing of the opportunity engine, you don't do any of the steps, be a connector. So every time you speak to someone, think about the framework, personal, business, personal, but also think about who in my network could I introduce that person to, and you will see great things happening for if you are being a connector. And then the reminders. Even if you don't start the system and you don't reach out to 3 contacts you haven't reached out in a while, next time you talk to anyone, a client, a potential client, someone on your bonus list, set yourself a reminder to reach out to them again in 3 months or whenever. Just start setting reminders. If that's one of the things I can get you to do, if you're not doing being a connector or starting your opportunity engine, then that is one that I would really like you to do. Set reminders to reach out to people, because consistency, say it with me, beats intensity any day. All right. So this is what we had for the opportunity engine. And like I said, let's go to the other view so you can actually see us again. So what we're doing next is Daniel will give a quick overview over the levers method, the method that we use to help people, clients in our programs to establish a consistent book of business, but also create trusted relationships. We use the levers method in all of our programs. We establish programs for firms specifically, but we also have an accelerator program. Daniel's talking about this. Everyone can join, and the next accelerator program starts in May. But yeah, I'm going to give it over to Daniel so he can quickly talk you through the levers method. And then at the end, I'm going to answer questions. So if you want to start sending questions in the chat, please do so. And I'll give it up to my lovely colleague.
There you go. Thank you, Anja. So you heard us talking about what we do in the workshops and the system. It's always system. And we, as peakleap, we have identified why most developing training programs are not sticking. We talk about habits. What was missing to make it land, to make it stick? And it was a holistic approach. So we have identified the need, and we have designed a program, a system called the levers system, the levers methodology, that combines different aspects to make sure you're not just listening to a theory. We walk you through. As Anja said, we use implementation over education. And a lot of times you just given the lecture, or you need to do more networking, but a lot of times you don't know how. As we just saw, they're more than just pick up the phone and call somebody. You need steps to be able to be successful in it. So what we have, as I said, the levers method. And what it is, it's how we connect the dots from theory to implementation, right? So L, it stands for lead. Before you can connect with others effectively, for example, you need the clarity, you need to understand how you naturally lead that conversation. And that it's another aspect. So we're talking about strategic influence. And that might be missing if you only think in terms of business development. You need a complement to that. So you need to understand yourself and your influence. Then establish. The E, it stands for establish, which is networking is not just, or it's not about selling. It's about clarity, it's about staying top of mind, as we learned. It's how you shape your message so you can connect with those people, the right people, and with the best version of yourself. Then we move to the V. V is to validate. Again, without theory, it's you can't leave the strategy on the paper, on a piece of paper, on a note. You need to implement, and in order to implement, you will need to test it. So you need to validate to make sure your network and those client conversations are going to flow and get us somewhere. Then we move to E, execute. How to put those habits that we talked about in place. Good networking, it's not going to an event and period and say I did networking, I talked to two people. It's a rhythm. Execution, it's where you can turn those connections into the real opportunities. Then we come to R, replicate. You turn everything that you learned into effective actions in a consistent system. Anja said it over and over again, and I can, not address it. Consistency will win. A consistent system is what's going to get you there. And then S will be escalate. Once you identify what works, why didn't you refine, replicate, now you scale. Now you build a reputation that will attract the people, the right people to you, right? So how can you stay top of mind for the longer time, for the long term, right? So those are the steps, 6 steps that will make sure everything that we talk about in our workshops will actually land, will stick, and you will be able to implement. So with that in mind, we move on to, let me show you an example of a program, because you heard us saying the accelerator program here. And I want to show you a visual representation of one example of it. This is not the only one, but the one example we have of the accelerator program. Keep in mind, this is a program, is a 12-month program, but we also have a 6-month program. We have a 3-month program.
It depends on the firm, right? What the firm needs.
And the individual. So as Anja mentioned, the programs are designed for both. You can do as a firm, as a team all together, and have it exclusive for your firm, for your team, or you can join a cohort that will gather different professionals from law and consulting at different levels. Sometimes we have programs that are designed for senior level, others that are designed for a more junior level, but you also can do networking during those programs, right? So we have 3 variations, but this is the one that we have the best results, is the most comprehensive, and is a five process, 5-step process. So we have two 12-week sprints, right? This is for the 46-month, 12-week program. And during those sprints, what we have is, for example, week number 1, on the first sprint, we start with the personality assessment to understand ourselves, know how we lead, and then we move on. So each week, every 2 weeks, we have a workshop. And for example, networking one, it's part of one of the weeks in the first sprint. And then you have in between, you have a live Q&A for an hour that you can ask your questions, get clarifications from what you learned in the webinar, in the workshop. And that's week on and off.
Feedback,
people.
like, sorry for interrupting, but
No, go ahead.
feedback and helping you implement this is like the key to the success of all of these programs. We're not just teaching, we're following up with you, and you can show us your work products because you will be working in the workshops, and we can give you feedback, and we can help you implement, not just in the implementation phase, but right after you've learned something and you start trying to use it. And it's been so powerful. So sorry, Daniel, I just want to make sure that
Perfect.
I mentioned that.
And one of the questions people always ask me, Daniel, but what about the commitment? How long do I need? You
Oh
need
yeah, I don't have
about,
time.
right? We never have time, but all you need is about 2 hours every 2 weeks, now, to focus on the workshop, and then a follow-up, and then you get to work on that. So you're not this putting time aside, you actually use the time you have to implement all the lessons we talk about. And then we have the implementation phase, 8 weeks implementation phase, where you actually work on doing the things. As Anja mentioned, you're going to go to an event and you're going to connect with people, and then you're going to start following up. But you're also going to come back and say, Daniel, Anja, I did this and it didn't work. So we can find why it didn't work. Let's tweak. So we're going to make it happen. We're going to walk you through every step of the way, and we're going to be with you to make it happen. So then we repeat the 12-week sprint. Again, same format, another implementation phase. And then at the end, we have a shorter sprint, a 6-week sprint, where we review what was done. We optimize everything that we have touched on during the time we've been together. We have other workshops to complement. And one of the most important parts, we don't just leave you. Nah? We make sure you have a plan going forward. Let's say we make a plan for the next 12 months ahead of you. Depends on what you need, depends where you are in your career, what you need out of it. We make a plan that will take you further. Nah? And then, whereas continue to another program, a shorter version, continue with other services that we're able to provide. It depends on where you are and what you do. Again,
And the last 6 weeks is so important because it's a holistic approach. So we give you everything you need to be successful in a large firm, in a small firm. But the last 6 weeks is all about making you ready to build your own big book of business, your own team. Like I'm going to butcher this, but we talk all the lessons we have, all the workshops we have, and we create these programs with whatever the firm needs or the individual needs. But we talk about so many things. We talk about sales strategies. We talk about public speaking. We talk about social influence. We talk about all things leadership, from communicating with clients, communicating internally, a lot of psychological insights. We talk about how to use AI to become more efficient and better. And then the last 6 weeks, we talk a lot about change management. We talk a lot about strategy. What is a good strategy? How does strategy look like? How can you implement it? We talk about BD planning for the next 12 months. Like, the last 6 weeks will set you on a path to success.
And that's why we it's a holistic approach, because we're touching on different aspects of it. So we combining business development with the strategic influence, with leadership, with AI implementation integration, to make sure you walk away with everything you need in order to make it happen. And that's how we can guarantee results, because we know the system, we tried, we've done it, and people get out of it with results that they have been trying for I don't even know how long, and it didn't work, but we
Yeah.
can guarantee you that this one does. So I know we're short on time. If you
Yeah,
want
5
more
minutes.
information, do me a favor. On top of your screen, you have a book a call. That call is with me, and I can walk you through the different variations of the program, the different phases, how we do things, what kind lessons, what kind of workshops we have. We have guest speakers for some topics. We bring in experts to talk to you about that topic and specifically. So go ahead, book that call with me, and then I'll be happy, glad to walk you through what we can offer you. So Anja, as we move forward here, I want people to go ahead and put your questions. If you have any questions, write in the chat for Anja to answer. And but I will start with the first one, right? So I'll break the ice.
Of course.
Anja, why do people struggle the most when they start using the system?
That's a good question. I think people are usually in the beginning not sure how to just start with their list. So that's why I'm always saying start with those 3 contacts you're reaching out tomorrow. Start with that, because that's the easiest way, and start setting reminders. I think once you have established a BD habit, and do it regularly, I think the consistency, people don't struggle that much anymore, just because they already see results really quickly. But in the beginning, I think they usually struggle with just getting started. So please just get started. I got, sorry, that was a very short answer, but we only have a couple of minutes left, and I want to address some of these questions. If I don't get to your question, or you've sent us a question, we will follow up with you via email. I know there are a lot of people in this call, and I will not everyone put them in the chat for everyone to see, but there are a lot of questions. So how does this apply if I'm more junior in my firm? So great question. We work with junior associates as well, and for them, it is more important to establish a network with their peers and people on their level. So obviously, I don't want you to reach out to a partner at a private equity firm. Make sure you start going to events that are maybe peer events, or that are internal, because internal marketing is just as important, because a lot of referral work comes from your internal network, cross-selling, upselling. But I think that's what I would say for juniors to start. But start as early as you start this networking, the sooner the opportunity engine can work for you. Hope that answers that question. And then I'm answering the public questions first. Sorry, Daniel.
No, I was gonna go to the next question I have here for you.
Yeah.
For
What's the next question?
Our friend from Guatemala.
Ooh,
She,
Adriana, hello.
for various reasons, I have been somewhat disconnected from my network, and now I'm in the process of rebuilding and reconnecting. What would you recommend for navigating this kind of transition? That's a good question.
It is a good question, and it can feel overwhelming if you haven't been doing any networking. And do not start with too much, because like I said before, you only have a certain amount of energy. Set yourself the goal to reach out to 3 people a day, and try to go to 3 meetings, lunch meetings, that you can start getting in as much as possible. I know 3 days a week is a lot, but all the big consultancy firms and the very successful law firms also have that as a ask of their more senior people. But when you reach out for the first time to someone you haven't reached out in a while, be honest. Just tell them you have been disconnected, various reasons, how much honesty you want. Maybe you've been off the job market for a while, but you started a new job. Be honest. Say, look, I've started this new job. I would love to reconnect. We haven't spoken in a while. I'm sure there has been so much going on in your life, in your business life. Let's connect. Let's go to lunch very soon. I think honesty goes a long way if you haven't been talking to people a while.
And yeah, I think we have time for one last question before we go.
Yeah. Should we do the question that was asked to the public, and not all of the other questions that were
Yes.
not? Okay.
Are there any tools you would recommend for
yeah.
tracking my network and all the interactions I have?
Yeah, so I am asked this question a lot, and I'm not happy with any of the tools that are out there at the moment. That's why we might be working on something, but use what is easiest to you, right? Use what you've been using anyways. Don't use LinkedIn as your networking tool, because those contacts are owned by LinkedIn and not yourself. If LinkedIn goes down, you don't have any connections anymore. So please start with creating lists somewhere that works for you. OneNote. A lot of people use OneNote actually to use this kind and use more than one tool. You can use Monday.com. They have a free version, and it's like a huge CRM, but you can just use the basic functions to do this. You can actually also set reminders. You can use Google Contacts. You cannot use your Apple Contacts. It really doesn't work. Lots of people have tried it. It's just not meant to be, or it's not ideal for using for a network. So, we still have people that use Excel spreadsheets, not ideal. But what you're looking for, if you're looking for a tool, is usability friendliness. So you can use it as quickly as possible. You can jot down notes, personal, business, personal. Here we are again. And then setting reminders. That would be great. If you can find any tool that does these three things, that's perfect. And I know that lots of people use OneNote because it's connected in the Microsoft suite. So you can use Outlook reminders, and OneNote has its own reminders. It's not ideal, and it can never show you a client mapping or anything like that, like a proper CRM tool. But one word of caution before I let you go is your CRM tool in your firm, please use it, but use it for the contacts that are important for your firm. Try and find your own way of dealing with your own network and find your own tool. I wish I have had a better answer for you, but maybe start trying OneNote, or start trying just using Outlook. You can actually add notes to the contacts you have. It's just not pretty to have an overview over your contacts. All right. Sorry, we're 2 minutes over.
We made it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for all the questions. We will be following up with you. And please book a call with Daniel. There is so much more we can help you with and tell you about what other classes and workshops we're doing. And look out for the next masterclass. We are trying and talking about doing this every second week, because there's so much we could talk about. So stay tuned for that one, and thank you so much for joining, and have a great evening, day, midday, afternoon, lunch break, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you guys for joining. A pleasure. See you next time.
Bye.